December. We will follow our agenda tonight with the exception of two items. And those items are found under new business that have to do with a bond issue. And the two items there, items A and B, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
That we will postpone until the January meeting. Is there any other comments you want to make?
Just want to say that I jumped the gun and that I thought that these items had to be approved prior to our application going before the LGC, but bond counsel advised me yesterday that it's more appropriate for them to be approved by you all after the LGC meeting, so that hopefully will happen on January 8th.
So with that, we will do our new business items, beginning with item C. I would also like to ask, prior to starting the meeting formally, that if you would please join with me in a moment of silence. We lost a very dear friend in this community, as we are all painfully aware. Rebecca Bunch, when she left us, she left a big void. She's been reporting on local news stories for over 40 years, covered our meetings faithfully, and reported on the outcomes of those meetings, so all of you could hopefully keep up with some of the things we're trying to accomplish up here. But she's sorely missed already, so if you would just take one moment of silence. Thank you. So now if you would stand and join with me in the pledge of allegiance, after which Councilman Roscoe will offer an invocation. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father, all wise and everlasting God, we thank you for another privilege to come into the house where we do the business of the town. And we thank you for this privilege. We thank you for each officer. We thank you for the mayor. And we thank you for the town manager. We thank you. Give us wisdom to do that which is right. Give us wisdom to help us to grow. And we just want to thank you, help us to help the community and all we can. We ask these and all other blessings in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Poole. I called you by your first name, but did y'all catch that? Yes. That's fine. All right, we have a pretty lengthy agenda tonight, so we'll move right along. The chair would ask for approval of the minutes that are in your package.
So moved. Second.
Any corrections, additions, changes? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed, no? All right. We're now at item 5. We have a public hearing tonight. We have an application formerly known as Conditional Use Permit 18-2. And for the year 18, we're only getting to our second conditional use permit here in the month of December. But anyway, we are certainly delighted to be considering this tonight. So at this time, I'll call on our staff, headed by Elizabeth Bryant, to introduce us to the subject. And we do have people in the audience tonight with us, for which this case is being heard. And Mr. Will Ellis and Mr. Gary Franklin are here. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. Graham, nice to have you as well. So, Elizabeth, if you would, get us started.
Oh, yes, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
for
thank you for that.
testimony. Thank you.
Sorry.
When you only do
Two
a
a
year.
year.
Okay, the nature of a conditional use permit is a quasi-judicial procedure, and as such, comments made, during the comment period are those that can be substantiated with facts. This is not an occasion to express an opinion unless your opinion is backed by factual data that would support what you're saying. So with that bit of background, I would ask anyone who plans to speak tonight to stand, and I will administer a brief oath to you. If you would raise your right hand. In the matter before you tonight, do you promise to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you very much. All right. Thanks for reminding me.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. Time for my staff report, and I'll begin by apologizing for how dry it is, but as the mayor said, we're here tonight to review an application for a conditional use permit from Restaurant Property Investors 2 LLC, otherwise known as Burger Busters, and the group that plans to bring a Taco Bell to Edenton. I will just go through my staff report, and then afterwards, feel free to ask me any questions or interrupt me at any time with that as well. As I stated, the applicant, Restaurant Property Investors 2 LLC, seeks to have permission to construct a restaurant with drive-through in the Highway Commercial District at 232 Virginia Road. The property owner for the subject parcel is Southern Bank and Trust Company. The property is 1.12 acres, again zoned highway commercial, and on the property it's developed with an existing ATM that is owned by Southern Bank. Now, okay. The surrounding land use to the north, the property is used for commercial purposes. It's the Edenton Commons Shopping Center, and it's zoned highway commercial. So that's, right there is Edenton Commons, back here on your picture, Edenton Commons. To the south, the property is used for institutional purposes. It's zoned medical arts, and that's where Vidant Chowan Hospital is located, and then also R20, which is where Edenton United Methodist Church is located. To the east, the property is used for commercial purposes. That would be the Burger King restaurant, and is zoned highway commercial. To the west, we've got the Speedway, gas station, commercial use, commercial property. The zoning history for the parcel is that it was granted a conditional use permit in 2008, November of 2008, by the town council to Southern Bank for their ATM. You can see that the applicable regulations of your Unified Development Ordinance are Article 4, Permits and Final Plat Approval, Article 9, Zoning Districts and Zoning Maps, Article 10, Permissible Uses and Permissible Use Table, and Article 11, Supplementary Use Regulations. Municipal water and sewer services are available, but will need to be connected. The property is within the town's corporate limits. Town protection services, so fire and police, are available. The subject property has approximately 119 feet of frontage on Virginia Road, and it currently houses the Southern Bank ATM. You can see in our use table that's pictured there that the Highway Commercial Zoning District permits restaurants with drive-through by conditional use, which is what the applicant seeks in their application before you tonight. The town's technical review committee met in early October to review this project, and the minutes from that meeting are appended to your report. In addition, the planning board held a public meeting on November 19th to review the conditional use permit application, and they recommended approval of the application as presented with staff recommended conditions, and their minutes are also attached to your report. So prior to approval of any conditional use permit, the town council must ensure that the development at its proposed location meets the following criteria. 1, that the project will not endanger the public health or safety. 2, that it will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting property. 3, that it will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. And 4, that it will be in conformity with the land use plan, thoroughfare plan, or other plan officially adopted by the town council. The applicant has addressed these conditions in their attached application. Officials with restaurant property investors and engineer from Blakeway Corporation working with them on this project will be present for the town council meeting. Staff finds that the proposed use is compatible with the 2018 Edenton-Chowan land use plan, and the land use map, future land use map in that plan identifies this parcel and the surrounding area as suitable for commercial use. As I've stated before, restaurants with drive-through are permitted through the conditional use permit process in the highway commercial district. Staff finds that all applicable regulations of the Unified Development Ordinance and all staff concerns applicable to this development have been identified, and we offer the following conditions for your consideration. 1, that prior to the filing of a final plat, the developer shall post a bond to provide for all necessary, or it should be any necessary traffic improvements according to NCDOT cost estimates for utility connections, water and sewer built to town standard, and for drainage or stormwater detention improvements. 2, stormwater and drainage shall meet NCDOT, and that should be NCDEQ regulations, that's environmental quality. Drainage plans shall be reviewed by soil and water conservation staff and by the town engineer. 3, all proper NCDOT permits are required for access to Virginia Road. And 4, all details or improvements, including but not limited to facade, signage, infrastructure, sidewalks, landscaping, and street lighting shall be installed or constructed according to UDO requirements. And 5, the landscape plan shall be reviewed by the Town of Edenton Tree Committee. Now, I would like to say that we have a little bit different procedure for you to follow tonight. And in your staff report, you have a copy of a resolution or consistency statement that staff recommends that you adopt. In 2017, the North Carolina General Assembly amended North Carolina General Statutes to require that councils and county commissioners adopt a consistency statement, a specific consistency statement, finding any zoning permit applications or rezonings to be congruous with an adopted land use plan or comprehensive plan. So in the past, that number 4 up there has been sufficient. That you make a finding, you formally vote that it's in conformity with your land use plan. The change in the general statutes requires you to make a specific statement of consistency tied directly to your approved land use plan for the project. If you find that it's consistent, and if you find that it's inconsistent, you have to do the same thing. You have to state specifically why it's inconsistent. So for tonight, I'm going to read the proposed consistency statement. It's included in your staff report. So again, bear with me with the dry material. Whereas the Council of the Town of Edenton has considered the application for a conditional use permit for Restaurant Property Investors 2 LLC for a restaurant with drive-through, and finds that the conditional use permit, if enacted, will not endanger the public health or safety, will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, will be in harmony with the area in which it is located, and is warranted to achieve and is consistent with the purposes of the land use plan as explained by, but not limited to, the following goals and policies of the land use plan. Goal E1, to develop and implement strategies to promote 3 generations of population growth in the town that builds on existing resources and efforts to attract a retiree population and expands these efforts to include attracting new millennial and mid-career professional residents. Supported by policy E1, the town will encourage the location of businesses, residential development, and service providers that serve retirees while also creating jobs for younger residents, including medical offices, healthcare specialists, upscale dining, and leisure activities. Goal E2, to promote the establishment of a broad range of new commercial uses in the town, both in the downtown core and on the periphery, near the Highway 17, new Interstate 87 interchanges, with particular emphasis on grocery stores and restaurants. Supported by Policy E3, the town of Edenton encourages new commercial uses to locate in any commercial area within the town. In particular, the development of grocery stores and restaurants is encouraged. So that concludes my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for our staff, council members? Very good.
Okay.
All right, I will now open up the podium to the developers. Jim, would you like to make some comments related to your project?
I do not have, well, maybe I do. Let me see.
I could to you if you have your email pulled up.
We have a copy of it if you.
It's
They
not
have
that
a
big a
copy.
deal while she works on that
Okay.
possibly. Say, good evening, Mayor, Councilman. It's nice to be here. It's been a long process, and we wanted to thank staff first of all for kind of helping us, through it the whole way. It's been a joy to work with, and I think we've come up with the best possible layout and use for this, we'll say, uniquely shaped parcel. I say uniquely shaped because it is such a skinny parcel, excuse me, with its only frontage onto a public street being currently about 120 feet along Virginia Road. Originally, we were going to be limited to only one ingress egress off of Virginia Road because, again, that is our only frontage. And we have not been able to work out a deal with the shopping center to get a second access on the internal drive aisle, which is owned by them, owned and maintained by them. Luckily, just last week, I believe we have come to an agreement now where we are going to have a second entrance onto this internal drive aisle, which allows people to enter and leave the site through the existing light right there at the intersection, which I think would be a great improvement to the overall circulation, safety. I mean, you name it, it makes us 100 times happier with this site that we were planning on moving forward with anyway, but I think everybody can be happy with the new layout. My goal here today is just to kind of give you a little bit of background, like I just did, and be here for any technical questions that you might have. The real estate rep for the developer is also here, and he can answer any questions that you guys might have regarding the operations of the company and what you can expect once the site is up and running. So, again, just thank you, and any questions you guys might have, we'll stand by.
I'm just quiet. You got the access.
Yeah.
It was not easy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. All right, Mayor Vaughn and council members, thank you very much for having us tonight. I certainly appreciate it. Well, everyone, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Will Ellis. I'm the real estate manager for Burger Busters, Inc. Also, Restaurant Property Investors 2 is one of our sister companies, but Burger Busters is our major corporation. And we've been in business for 36 years. We were established, 32 years, my apologies. We were established in 1986. And our corporate offices in Virginia Beach. Gary and I drove down there this evening from there. So we're relatively local. We're certainly privately owned business. Although we obviously are developing Taco Bells, we are privately owned. About 35 people work in the office very closely with myself, and about 5,000 employees in the field through all of our 150 stores that we currently operate through 5 states, including Virginia, North Carolina. We also have a handful in West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. So we are constantly looking to expand our network, strengthen it. There's currently not a Taco Bell within probably an hour's drive from here. Elizabeth City, I think, is the closest. And we're just looking to, again, definitely set up a store that's closer that can service a large portion of the population in northeast of North Carolina that would normally have to drive an hour just to enjoy Taco Bell. So we're very proud of the brand itself, and we're also very proud to be considered to bring it to your town as well. I feel as though we'd be a great fit, and we're excited for that opportunity. And as Gary mentioned, it has been a long process. We were originally relying on Graham, who represents the ATM site, the bank who owns the property. He's worked with us to try to work out a cross-access. It actually came down to the owner of the shopping center considering selling us a little sliver of property between their drive aisle and the property line. So we're going to incorporate that, make our property slightly larger. Like Gary said, makes a much more safe site. That is our absolute top priority whenever developing a site, is safety for our customers getting onto our site and exiting our site. So that is always first and foremost. I'm heavily involved in the site layout design. That is always our principal's primary concern moving forward. So we feel as though we've done our absolute best job to make this a safe site, a easily accessible site, and add some more prime parking right next to the building by having that extra width to deal with as well. So really look forward to the opportunity, and again, Gary and I are definitely here for any questions that y'all may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, quick?
While you're there,
Sure.
because so many people have asked, and I know you explained this during the planning board meeting, but there's been a lot of people that have asked, and you can answer it again,
Sure.
as to why you're not a Taco Bell Kentucky fan.
Yes, that was brought up. That was definitely brought up and I explained it at the last meeting. Taco Bell and KFC, Pizza Hut are all Yum brands. It was Tricon that actually came up with the idea in the mid-90s, where they came up with dual brands for what Taco Bell, KFC, so you'll see a lot of those, Pizza Huts as well. That was a 90s theme, but since then, although we are under the same Yum umbrella, Yum bought out the company, I think it was 2005, I believe is what it was. But at that point in time, each of the brands, Taco Bell being an independent brand, KFC being an independent brand, Pizza being an independent brand, they wanted to branch out on their own, and actually it's almost impossible to build a co-branded KFC Taco Bell anymore, just because they want to keep their independent identity. And actually in Nag's Head, Gary helped us out with a remodel. It was an uphill battle just to get it remodeled. We have a Taco Bell KFC dual brand in Nag's Head that both sides were trying to get us to split and make it an independent just Taco Bell. We actually had to come up with a whole brand new set of plans just to redesign the building. So architects and engineers worked very hard just to get that over the hump to where we can keep it co-branded. So it is not something that either one of the brands allow moving forward anymore, unfortunately. So it would be no KFC, unfortunately. Taco Bell is our primary brand at Burger Busters, and we do have a couple residual dual branded units in our network, about 15 out of our 150 stores, so roughly 10%. No problem.
A bunch of people ask.
The bank plan on moving the ATM.
Yeah, the bank, the plan is to remove the ATM altogether at this point. I believe Southern Bank still has the unit right in downtown too, so I don't know if y'all have an ATM at that location or not, so I guess we would need to coordinate if y'all wanted to salvage the ATM, so we'll talk about that separately, so. Good. Any other questions?
Is
Mr.
it
President?
customary to set up between two burger joints, McDonald's and Burger King?
It happens frequently. We do. As funny as it sounds, competition, competitors, direct competitors. Although burgers and tacos are not necessarily direct, but it is vital for success of business to have another competitor in the market for sure. So it just so happens to play out that way sometimes. But,
That's why they're called burger
so,
busters.
yeah. Exactly. Ironically, we do have a burger, we have Steak and Shake as one of our brands as well, so. Okay.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Very good, thank you, Will.
Thank you,
Mayor.
absolutely.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I would
sir.
just say a few things on Southern Bank's behalf if I can.
Absolutely.
Just, the important thing that we wanted to make sure is, this is a extremely important, community in our network. I think that most folks hopefully know that we are really committed to, this part of North Carolina. This is our heart. And, if you look at this piece of property, it's really a prime piece of property in a really heavily commercial area. And we just felt like having an ATM taking that property out of contention for something that might help our community, we just didn't want to be a part of letting that small ATM hinder some progress and growth here. So I want to make sure everybody knows that just because we're closing that ATM has by no means that we're doing anything different in Edenton. We're going to start searching maybe for another location for that, but that we are still 110% invested here, by our building downtown and all the staff that are important parts of this community. So I want to make sure that you understand that we're committed.
Thank you very much, and we feel your commitment. Y'all have been tremendous supporters of our community in a variety of ways. Okay, all right, is there any, everybody that was sworn in has spoken. Now, according to what I have before me, we're gonna consider the consistency plan first, is that correct?
You may want to open up, even though no one from the public stood up to speak, to be sworn in, you might
Yeah.
want to ask if anybody, open the public hearing and see if anybody wanted to speak. They would need to be sworn in if they wanted
Sure.
to speak.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak in support of or in opposition to this application?
Is it possible to ask a question?
Fire away.
With the traffic situation being what it is right at that corner, that 50 feet or 100 feet that we now have when we're getting ready to turn in the food line is going to be gone and there'll be a driveway there now? Is that right?
Our entrance is actually going to be approximately where the existing entrance is to the ATM as it is.
I see, okay.
And again, we actually fought pretty hard with the shopping center to come up with an agreement
Mhm.
to actually get a curb cut right aligned where the McDonald's entrance is on the drive aisle leading to food line.
Oh, yes.
So we'll have a drive, we'll have two ingress egress points.
Excellent.
So there will be an entrance there, but there will still be curb line from the end of our, I guess, the southern portion of our entrance, the northern portion of our entrance to the intersection itself.
Thank you.
And also, just, no matter what happens here tonight, how the vote goes, the entrance itself onto Virginia Road is still gonna have to be reviewed by NCDOT. So any safety concerns, engineering-wise, anything like that will all be taken into account during that review. So, we still have to get through that, that hasn't been approved yet, so just wanna make that clear.
Okay, thank you, good question. Is anyone who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing relative to this application. Council members, as you recall in the staff report, we are now tasked to add another piece to our process for consideration in addition to the 4 items that we normally approve. So, having had that read, Elizabeth and I talked earlier, and I thought it was more appropriate for her to read it than me as part of her report. So, it is in the record that we're in compliance with the new law. So, the chair would entertain a motion to adopt the land use plan consistency statement.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll go now to our 4 findings of fact. The chair will entertain first a motion that states that this project will not endanger the public health or safety?
So moved, Mayor. Second.
Motion and a second, questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right. Next, finding of fact is that this project will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting property.
Second.
Motion and a second to that effect, questions or comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Third finding, the project will be in harmony with the area in which it is located.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second that it will be in harmony. Questions?
Comment.
Comments?
Never in my life, sitting behind this desk, have I ever seen anything that was in harmony more than this project.
And in between two franchises.
Cannot be more in harmony.
Good point. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And finally, we need a motion that states the project will be in conformity with the land use plan and thoroughfare plan or other plans officially adopted by the town council.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have satisfied the four findings of fact. We have adopted the newly required resolution, consistency statement rather, and now we can entertain a motion to approve the project as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to that effect. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Project approved. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We look forward to having you in our community with another food option for our citizens and
Absolutely.
visitors.
How much longer before Della can have a taco?
We're gonna go as fast as we can, I promise.
It's as of right now, it's tentatively on our docket for middle of next year, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for choosing Edenton.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for
You
all
gotta
that.
get home delivery.
We'll try to work that out.
All right, very good.
Nothing says you have to leave now. Can't stay.
I do have to get home myself. Thank you all very much.
I think we're all going to McDonald's for supper.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank
you.
Henry, thanks for everything. Everything, you, sir. We certainly appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
All right, thank you again.
All right, you too.
All right.
Sure, no problem.
Back to our agenda, we are now at item 6, which are committee meeting reports from our previous committee meeting session. And we'll begin that with a report from our Public Works Committee chaired by Councilman Stallings, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. We only have one item on the agenda tonight. It is recommended that council receive and consider results of our speed survey that was recommended from the North Carolina Department of Transportation traffic engineer regarding the speed limit on North Granville Street. And we have Jason Davidson with us tonight from NCDOT that he's going to give us his report.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman, thank you for letting us be here tonight. And, did everybody receive, put in a copy of there, Councilman Poole, did you get one? I may have overlooked. Okay, good, that's what I'll be speaking from tonight. And, we'll make it quick and painless. I was contacted by, County Manager Knighton to review North Granville Street for the possibility of reducing the speed limit, and the original request was for the section from Queen Street to Freemason Street that enters the property where the sheriff's department and everything is now. And but as part of that, we went ahead and we reviewed the street in its entirety all the way back out to Virginia Road. And I've just summarized our findings, and I split both sections out. The section that we are mainly concerned with, and then the additional section of from Freemason back out to Virginia Road. And I'll start over here with our speed limit investigation criteria. And I'll kind of go through it really quick and kind of explain it a little bit more in depth. The 85th percentile speed basically what we did is we went out and took, our own speed study using a LiDAR gun, and it allows us to capture free-flowing traffic. And, the more traffic traffic's not being snarled up by one vehicle going 20 miles per hour and then 15 people behind it. We don't count all of those, we just look at the lead vehicle, so we're getting all the prevailing speeds. And, for the section, in question from Queen to Freemason, you'll see that came back at 31 miles per hour. And, for establishing a speed limit inside of a residential area or inside of a municipal area, we usually round that down, so we would say 30 miles per hour. But I will note that the traffic coming from Queen Street was considerably slower than the traffic heading back from Virginia Road going back to Queen Street. And they're coming off of the wider section of roadway, carrying a little bit more speed, but the people that are coming from Queen Street, narrower, smaller, it feels a little bit less uncomfortable, so they kind of push the numbers up a little bit. I would probably generally say that the 85th percentile speed would be more in the 28, 29 mile per hour range if you kind of discounted some of the speeders that were headed back towards Queen Street. And we'll go to the condition and type of roadway. It is an asphalt roadway in good to fair condition. Roadway width and number of travel lanes. For most of the section from Freemason, things back to East Carteret, is a 2-lane, approximately 22 feet wide. I think that's kind of giving it a little bit with the old granite style curb and gutter. Kind of, it's not usable asphalt because you never get that close to it. And then in the 2-lane section with side street parking on both sides, there's a 36-foot cross section. And we'll move down to the shoulder width, the condition and type. It's a curb and gutter with sidewalks on both sides, all are in good condition. Horizontal and vertical roadway alignment is a straight section with a small rise as you come from Queen Street headed up past Carteret. The roadside development is another key thing that we look at along with the 85th percentile speed is the type of development and the amount of development. And as you all know, it's 100% developed. There's not any lots in there that are open for development or vacant. Properties would have to be torn down to, expand, do anything extra. And for speed limits set under 35 miles per hour or lower, we usually look at 75% development as the key for that. And then in this case, it's 100%. So it will be even lower than the typical 35. The composition of traffic using the roadway and its local cut through. It's basically everybody's using a shortcut from each side of town, and that causes your speeds to be higher, which makes it less safe and causes some issues in there. And then the numbers and types of intersections and driveways. There was 28 private driveways, 5 roadway intersections. So compiling all of this information, our recommendation would be to lower this section to 25 miles per hour. And I think it's just, it looks a lot like Church Street as you come into town from the John Deere place back towards the post office, and also Queen Street from Tasty Freeze or the Freeze back to Broad Street. They're major primary highways and their speed limit is set at 25 miles per hour already. So, we would like to do in kind and recommend that be the treatment here.
Thank you, Jason. We appreciate your speaking to us tonight and all the work that you put in on this. We really appreciate it. Does anyone up here have any questions for Jason?
It doesn't have to be questions related to this. I know Anne Marie's got some hot button topics, especially the traffic signal at Paradise Road. So had some issues there, so I just want to let you know, talk to the contractor. He's in the division this week and it will be repaired.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We had to have a come to Jesus meeting, but we're going to get there.
There has been some discussion about that, so
But
we appreciate it.
any other items you'd like to discuss while I'm here, I'm open to whatever.
Okay. Thank you, Jason.
All right.
We're gonna break the rules a little bit tonight. Normally, we don't, have a comment section during a council action on items, but we're gonna make an exception tonight. Ms. Della has got a letter, I believe it is, that she wants to read to us tonight, so Della, you're up. If you'll go to the podium and introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor Vaughn and council members. My name is Della Benavides, and I am in 5th grade at D.F. Walker Elementary. Tonight, I am here to talk about reducing the speed limit on Granville Street. I live on West Gale Street and cross Granville Street to wait on the corner for the bus at 7:10 every weekday morning. This has been my bus stop for almost 5 years. I wait with 3 other children that are under the age of 7. Every single day, cars come barreling down the street, probably because they are late for work and know they won't get a ticket. There is a digital speed recorder on Granville, and people slow down when they get near it. However, people speed up when they pass it. In all my 5 years waiting at the bus stop on Granville, I have never seen a policeman pull someone over or monitor or give someone a ticket. Some children don't know better and stand on the edge of the sidewalk. The careless drivers speeding down Granville Street are going too fast to stop if a child happened to wander off the street. The child could be seriously injured and even killed. Although I am allowed to walk to and from my bus stop, my mom meets me at the bus stop because she fears that I will get hurt from a speeding car or a careless driver. Please consider reducing the speed limit for the safety of the children and the elderly of my neighborhood. Thank you for listening to me share my opinion.
Thank you, Della. We really appreciate it when young folks get involved in anything that's going on in the town, and we certainly appreciate you coming before us tonight. So, after Jason's comments and his report and everything, do we want to take action on that tonight, or do we want to think about it and put it off until the January 8th, I think it's January 8th meeting, or should we, I'd like to get some input from the rest of the council to whether we take action on it tonight or wait until January and give us more time to study it and look at the reports and what have you.
Well, you asked, I'm gonna tell you, if DOT has said that in their report that it needs to be reduced, and, they own the street, and we've had people consistently asking us that live there to go ahead and drop it. I for one, I don't see any reason to wait. If the mayor would.
I think it's ready for a motion. If that's the pleasure of you all.
It is.
Because it did go through committee, and it has been fully vetted there, and also with the added opinion from the North Carolina Department of Transportation. I think that should satisfy
Mayor,
our,
is a motion in order now?
absolutely.
I'd like to make a motion that we drop the speed limit from 35 to 25.
Second.
Street.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to that effect. Any further comments?
I just want to make sure we're clear that it's the entire lane.
Correct.
Okay.
Virginia Road.
And just so you're aware, what will happen next is, if you approve it, we sign some paperwork, and I send that to Jason, and then Jason has to send it to Raleigh for approval, but he has said that they have expedited their review process, and it can happen within a matter of weeks, and DOT would then come out and post the new speed limit signs.
Further supports our taking action tonight, right?
I would hope, and I know safety, as y'all well know, has always been my concern, especially with children and bicycle helmets that still fail on considerably. But I would hope that, our police department would certainly give people time to adjust to that, and not just sit there and write tickets after ticket after ticket. That's not fair to the general public either. But I think, if we can give a little time to give warnings and
Give people enough time to adjust.
That's right.
it has been 35 for a long time.
Long time.
Yeah, I know. Before I came on council, they reduced it to 25 one time, and there was a big hullabaloo about it, and they had to change it back to 35. But times have changed, times are different, so let's go with it. And I agree with Steve on that, you know, give people time to adjust before we start writing too many citations.
I've also noticed we have children playing signs on Granite Street, and there seems to be located where children aren't living, and that there are no signs down Granite Street where children are playing. They could be moved. So instead of purchasing new signage, it'd be a matter of just moving it down.
Maybe Della can help us with the sign location, so we know.
Like the Church Street down to Water, there's no children, but
No, that's not right, there are children.
are there down
Go
there?
ahead.
Yeah.
Well, whereabouts? I'm talking about from Queen Street down to,
Water.
yeah,
There's 3 new ones.
there are new,
Cockle.
I'm sorry.
Live
Okay.
there, and they
A lot
have
of
children.
children.
Okay, I didn't know there were kids in there. Okay, yeah,
But
yeah,
what's the point?
yeah. Well, we
We-
could add some more.
May I remind you, we're in a motion discussion here, so, we need to keep the conversation up front. And,
Okay.
does anybody else have any question or comment about the motion to reduce the speed limit? Hearing none, all in favor, aye? Any opposed, no? Motion carried. We will be about making that adjustment. Thank you all very much for your, interest and your persistence and everything else that has helped bring this, to the table here tonight.
And Della, please know you were the one that swayed this whole thing.
We
Call
thank you,
Della's
we
law.
thank you.
Yeah,
Devil's law.
Della's law. Well, that's all we have.
okay, thank you, sir. Next, we'll hear from our Utilities Committee, that's chaired by Councilman Bond, who's not with us. Marie, could you cover that topic?
Sure,
Those
Mayor,
topics, sir?
happy to do that. At the last meeting, the Utilities Committee reviewed the water shortage response plan, which is a plan that is mandated by the state. The state has reviewed the plan and has approved it, and the last step is for the council to formally adopt the plan. So the Utility Committee recommended council adopt that plan.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to adopt such a plan.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor, aye? Any opposed, no? All right, next item, please, ma'am.
Mayor, at the last committee meeting, we reviewed with the committee an agreement we had received for, a proposal that we had received for recruitment services to help fill the vacancy for the electric director position. I have reached out to another firm who declined to entertain the option to assist us. They said they had difficulty filling that type of position and did not think that they could help us find candidates. I did reach out to Eddie Miller he's the economic developer for the North Carolina cooperatives, and he said he was not aware of anybody, but he would post it. And then immediately he did respond that one of the cooperatives said they'd be happy to enter into a management agreement with us, and that won't work. But there might be some conversation about some technology that they could assist us with, but we need our own director. This company I've talked to a couple times, Tammy and I have. They have networks in the Raleigh, Greensboro, Charlotte area, and then also in different locations along the eastern part of the state. They seem very eager. They've called a couple times wanting to check on them. They have had success in filling water utility high-level management positions. I think if we could go ahead and get started and work with them, I think that's the best option that we have on the table.
Okay, so the recommendation from committee would then be to, engage the company you just spoke about?
Yes, sir.
Get on with the process?
Do we know what they can charge us to?
They charge, theirs is a percentage of the estimated salary, and so it would be about $18,000. And we would fund that with, unused salary, the vacancy for the position, so you have the funds available.
Oh, good, okay.
What kind of reputation do they have?
You know, they have been used, by somebody locally. That's kind of how we found out about them. And, you know, their, client list was very impressive. When Tammy and I had a conference call with them, I recounted earlier to you their approach and how they would go about talking to what they called, influencers in the industry. Their enthusiasm was just over the top and it was legitimate. You know, I think they want to get into more municipal work, and this would be an opportunity for them to really try to shine.
If you feel comfortable with that and moving forward, then I would make a motion that we employ them.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to, enter into a working agreement. Would you name the company for us?
Yes,
No.
Nautical?
Nautical, right, okay. With the Nautical Consulting Group in pursuit of a fire chief.
Electric director.
Oh, excuse me, electric department. Okay, any further questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Any opposed, no? All right. Thank you, ma'am, for filling in. We move now to our administrative committee report, and that's chaired by Councilman Biggs. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. It is recommended the council adopt a resolution supporting the retention of John A. Holmes High School at its location as presented. It was in your packet for discussion at the committee meeting, and I will put it in the form of a motion that we approve the resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve adopt the resolution supporting the retention of the consultant who would bring us an economic impact on the value of John A. Holmes High School being located in the city limits of Eden. Any further questions or comments?
Mayor, I just clarified, the first motion is for the resolution, and then the second motion would be on hiring the consultant.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see
They have
that.
2 reports.
I see it now, okay. All right, I'll back up. Just for the resolution. Move to adopt.
So moved.
You had a motion.
You got a
and
motion,
second,
yeah.
yeah.
All right, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, no? All right.
Our second item is recommend the council approve agreement with NC State Institute for transportation research and education as presented, which is what you just referred to, Mayor, is, and then to come in and work with us on this. And I will put that in form of a motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to hire the NC State Institute for Transportation and Research as presented. Further questions or comments? I'll make one comment. I believe that, getting a third-party evaluation of something that could be of such great interest to the citizens of this community is a great thing to have, the product that this effort is going to produce. I think it will not only help us evaluate our local economy and impacts that, in this case, the school has on it, but I think it will enlighten us as well, because I don't have a clue what it is, but we have salaries, we have cars coming and going, eating meals, buying gas. There's a ton of stuff out there that's related to attending school, and I'm anxious to have their findings for present and future use. So, anyway, we're commenting, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, all in favor, aye? Any opposed, no? Thank you very much.
All right, we're gonna have one other item, is recommended council approve the cell phone reimbursement policy as presented. As you well remember, Anne Marie was telling us the department heads, normally have a town phone and their own, their personal phone, and, you know, they're toting two, and,
Not conference
so
today.
the deal is, we pay them $50 a month, they pay the rest. I don't know about the rest of it, I think mine's about $1.20 a month, so, you know, letting them pay the rest, and, then they won't have to tote two phones, and, what's personal is still personal on their personal phone, and what's business is still business. So if, somebody comes a calling and wants the record, we have to produce it, but, I know most of the time my emails, of course, are separate, on my phone. So that, you know, they're welcome to them, because I'm in the same situation all these department heads are in. But long story short, we recommend and make a motion to that effect that we approve the cell phone reimbursement policy.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. So the motion is for the cell phone reimbursement policy as presented.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye? Opposed, no?
Thank you, sir. That's all we have tonight.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn new business over to Anne Marie, remembering that we are not going to discuss this evening items A and B.
Okay, Mayor, thank you. As the mayor and council know, we are doing a lot of work on the East Water Street pump station and that drainage basin. And we recently were made aware through our engineers with the Wooten Company of two possible grants that could help us with both of those, with that area. One is a grant that would fund a feasibility study to study potential options of improvements that could be made in that drainage basin area to help either slow down or reduce or treat stormwater. And so the grant application is due December 31st, and the council has to approve the application. The way the funding works is the state would fund half, and then the town would be required to fund the other half. It's estimated that the study will cost a total of up to $50,000, so the town would have to pay $25,000 and the grant would fund $25,000. We think this is a great opportunity for us to really look at some innovative new technology, and there very well could be grants, especially through the Clean Water Management Trust Fund, to help pay for implementation. So we have that resolution for you, and we also have a resolution for a second project under that same grant program with DEQ, and that would actually fund an improvement. And I asked Corey to put together a real brief, I know this is not a committee meeting, but a real brief presentation for you describing what technology our engineers think could be a really good fit and help address some of the concerns at the East Water pump station. So, Corey?
you again, Anne Marie, Mayor, Town Councilman. Yes, we'll, try to keep this as brief as possible. But we do want to at least give you, just a general overview of what we're considering going forward and what type of options there are available to make improvements, particularly around the drainage area that feeds into the East Ward Street pump station. So what we're looking at is some stormwater control measures. Quick overview, we'll go through the objective, which is the same objective we had almost a year and a half ago when we started making improvements. We'll look at the drainage area, we'll look at a particular property that the town currently owns where improvements could be made. We'll also look at what type of technology is available, and then if anyone has any questions, very preliminary questions about this, we can go through those as well. Like I said, about a year and a half ago, our objective has always been to improve the current systems, containment capacity, and improve the capability of the stormwater system to process stormwater runoff safely and efficiently. So what we'll look at tonight is what's considered a new green technology that's also considered best management practice when processing stormwater. I guess you are all very familiar with this area. We've been talking about this for quite a while now. This is the 74-acre section of town from Church Street all the way to Water Street that's kind of wedged in between Oakham and what would be South Broad Street, starting up near the post office and working its way behind the courthouse, across Queen, Eden, King, and then funnels its way to the East 4th Street pump station, which is, of course, located near Hayes Bridge. One particular property that we'll take a look at that happened to catch everyone's attention is located here at 206 East Eden Street. What is particularly interesting about this property is you have your two major branches that combine just past this property, so you have an opportunity to not only address some stormwater concerns from the post office region, but also about mid-Church Street where the stormwater system starts there. And as you can see, just to the, I guess what would be southwest corner of this property, you can see where the stormwater system actually combines. So we're looking here at Eden and basically Court Street, just near the old bottling plant. You can see photos of the property to the left, and then the current stormwater system map to the right, which and you can see where these two systems run from east to west and one from kind of a northeast to southwest direction.
Corey, if I just might just remind the council that the town acquired that lot right after Hurricane Isabel. That was a buyout, similar to the buyout that you went through for the house recently on Virginia Road. There was a house there that flooded during Isabel, and the cost of repairs was more than 50%, and those property owners agreed to the buyout. So the town owns that land, and we've been maintaining it as well.
So one of the things we're considering here, because you have the flexibility of really heading off two parts of this stormwater system to help with containment and also process runoff. One option that we found, and this is a particular vendor, they referenced at the bottom if you're interested in looking at any of their products beyond this, it's there. But not only for increasing the capacity of what the system is able to hold, but we're also interested at helping kind of remove impurities that you commonly see in stormwater, which are labeled to your right. So on the far left, we have a picture of one of the type vaults that they use that actually has the containment pods with the media that really cleanses the stormwater, and then sends that clean stormwater out the bottom and back into the stormwater system. It does have the potential to help increase the capacity, but it also has a baffle type system that would allow for any type of surge to come through, and instead of containing things in one area and maybe overfilling what you've got the capability and creating a new problem, we've really got the flexibility to use what was existing prior to any type of improvements. This is something you see a lot in a lot of urban areas where space is limited, and I think that this is something that, you know, make a great improvement for us. You know, we would like to see, you know, anywhere from probably 20 to 50,000 gallons of additional capacity, and by having multiple branches, that flexibility is there when you consider the feasibility study and the actual design process. And that's really it. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to field those. We wanted to try to give you a bird's eye view of what options could come about in the near future.
We would look for, because this project, the estimate is expensive. It's, I think, almost $90,000 on the grant and then $90,000 local. And we would have to identify funding, and I really think that we have an opportunity with the Clean Water Management Trust Fund. You know, that group, that board met here recently, and they told us they were looking for projects in northeastern North Carolina. So that's what our plan would be. If you're inclined to authorize us to go ahead and apply for these two grants, we would simultaneously be working with Clean Water as well. And they like to see programs that are jointly funded, so that would help our application. So Mayor, if the council would consider adopting the resolution under item C and D. One resolution is for the feasibility study with DEQ, and the other is the resolution for the stormwater improvement project, as Corey just described.
So do I understand this device would replace what's there now?
The device itself would be in addition to
In addition to?
the current,
And where would it be located? Back
depending
up
on,
on, in the Court Street area?
it would be in the East
Yeah,
Eden
Eden
Street
Street, yeah.
block of, 200 block of East Eden Street.
Okay.
And its exact location would be determined by the existing utilities, and how you were able to maneuver those into this type of containment device, and then tie the exit stream back into existing stormwater utilities.
Does the fact that it cleanses the water when it goes through in any way slow down the movement of the water out in the big?
Yes, I do think so. I think that we would have the ability to really slow down what we see making its way to the pump station during our normal rain events. I think when we had a slightly elevated, we would see maybe some of the baffle effect where it would actually process a smaller amount because of what was coming through the system. We would get some that would be bypassed. But when we have a heavy rain event, that surge would make its way through the system, contain whatever the design volume was, and what was beyond that, it would continue as we have now.
These are two separate votes, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution for the stormwater feasibility study. Second. Motion and a second to authorize. Further questions? All in favor, aye? Any opposed, no? All right, we now consider a resolution for the stormwater improvement projects grant application. Okay, any further questions or comments?
Just a quick comment. You better than any of us sitting up here know how much of a pain that is, so, I'm happy to try to help if we can.
Thank you very much. Okay, any further questions or comments? All in favor, aye? Any opposed, no. Very good. All right, we'll just see what that brings forward. Item B, please.
Mayor, this is kind of an unusual action. Back after Hurricane Matthew, the town applied for and received a grant from Golden Leaf. It was an appropriation of state money that was given to Golden Leaf to help address infrastructure improvements after Hurricane Matthew. And our grant was awarded, but Golden Leaf then passed off our grant to Department of Commerce. So you actually executed a grant agreement with Department of Commerce with the Rural Infrastructure Division. And we're just about finished with the grant. We're waiting on the last invoice from the vendor. The company that we contracted with was recently sold and they're kind of going through a transition, but we're almost finished with the grant. But anyway, Golden Leaf called me last week and asked, would it be okay, it would be very helpful if the town were to terminate the agreement with Commerce and enter into a new agreement with Golden Leaf for the very same project, the same amount of money, and they promise that their reimbursement process will be less arduous than Commerce. And Commerce is, for this project, has not been bad at all. But we're trying to help Golden Leaf, and as a matter of fact, they're coming to visit us tomorrow to look at an application that we have pending. So it would be helpful if you all would agree to terminate the Commerce grant and then enter into the new agreement with Golden Leaf.
Can that be done in a single motion, or do you terminate?
I think it would be good to have it in one motion, that way there's no question that
Yeah,
they're linked, yes.
okay.
So you saying maybe for once we got Gerlach over the barrel instead of the other way around?
We need our help, yeah.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, for once.
For once.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. The Golden Leaf, let's see, the chair would entertain a motion to, cancel the present agreement we have with the Department of Commerce and move to initiate a new agreement with Golden Leaf to pursue the sanitary sewer collection system.
Do it. Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, aye? Any opposed, no? All right.
Thank you. Mayor,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the next item, actually, the next 4 items are budget amendments, and these amendments were reviewed at the special meeting that the council conducted last week, and they're directly related to the recommendations that the coach team made, the coach team from the North Carolina Local Government Commission that visited with Virginia and I, as well as the mayor, about 2 weeks ago. The first budget amendment is repayment of the loan from the water and sewer fund to the general fund. And you know from previous conversations and reports that the general fund was supporting the engineering fees that were necessary for 4 of our ongoing capital improvement projects in the water and sewer fund. And we're on the verge of most of those projects, funding being available. For instance, January 8th, hopefully LGC is going to approve the USDA bonds, and the town will be reimbursed almost $115,000. There are a couple other projects in the works. Last month, I believe it was, you approved the $1 million zero interest loan from DEQ. We're waiting for their final paperwork so we can go ahead and submit applications, and I think that we're expecting, Virginia, I'm drawing a blank, it's a lot, it's like $50,000 worth of engineering out of that DEQ. Altogether, it's $266,000. And if you approve that, what will happen is, because the water and sewer fund is in good fiscal health, Virginia will transfer funds from the water and sewer fund to the general fund, and that will help your cash position. We'll be able to tell the LGC in our letter that we made that improvement, and they'll be pleased to see that. So we recommend that that budget amendment be approved, Mayor.
Okay. We'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved, Mayor.
Motion and a second to follow that process to repay and then put money back in the general fund. Further questions or comments? All in favor, aye? Any opposed, no? All right.
Mayor, another recommendation that the coach team made was that last year and again this fiscal year, as the council knows, you are funding a lot of one-time capital projects. And those capital projects that are in the general fund, cumulatively at the end of the year, that increases the amount of expenditures. And in 2017-18, the expenditures for capital projects was increased by like 1.5 million, and that was mainly due to the road project, that was due to the bulkhead project, it was also due to the Harteef grant. And so those expenditures caused the bottom line to be, $1.5 million higher than it had been in the previous year. And expenditures is a calculation that is used to determine the required amount of fund balance. So in order for us not to have such high expenditures when we end this fiscal year, the coach team recommends that you establish a general fund capital projects ordinance. And so we've prepared a budget amendment where you would move, for instance, the purchase of the street sweeper, $230,000, to the capital projects ordinance. There were the police vehicles, the proposed fire command vehicles, the proposed USDA loan for the streets project. So that would all lower the year-end expenditures June 2019, and that's going to help with the calculation for next year's reserves.
Okay. With that explanation, Chair would entertain to approve that amendment for the capital project.
Second.
Motion and a second to do so. Further questions? All in favor, aye? Any opposed? All right.
And then, Mayor, in order to then reduce the amount of expenditures in the general fund, we need to ask you to approve the budget amendment that actually deletes those capital expenditures from the general fund. So you'll see, for instance, the loan for the police cars, that $60,000 loan, the revenue is taken out of the general fund, as is the expense out of the police department expended line item. Same thing for the street sweeper. We had estimated, and thank you, Corey, for buying a street sweeper that cost $20,000 less than what we budgeted. We had anticipated a $250,000 street sweeper. That revenue to be anticipated is on the books, so we want to go ahead and get that out of the general fund, because you have previously just now adopted the capital projects ordinance. So we ask that you approve, that budget amendment, Mayor.
Okay. Chair would entertain to approve that budget amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
And Mayor,
Item I.
the last budget amendment, the solar farm, you adopted a, budget amendment. You amended the electric fund budget in May when we received that funding from the developer. And, we're asking, we did not, and it was my bad, I did not budget for that. I did not roll that project forward into into this current fiscal year. So we're asking, that you adopt a capital budget ordinance for that project in this fiscal year. And this, budget ordinance is identical, to the amendment from a dollar standpoint that you approved back in May.
Very good. Motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further questions or comments on that amendment? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and now, the letter.
Mayor, and council, you have reviewed the draft letter, our draft response letter to the LGC about, explaining why our fund balance decreased, so dramatically last fiscal year, and then what our plan is moving forward to, rebuild. And some of the measures that you took tonight will help that, tremendously, as well as the receivables. There was a timing issue with grants, the $190,000 reimbursement for the, playground came in after June 30. We received that cash, so that's helping your cash situation. And there were some other receivables. There was an $84,000 reimbursement for the airport fuel farm that came in after June 30. So those changes, that information is being put into or has been put into the draft letter. We sent the draft to the coach team, and they recommended that I amend the letter and include a narrative about the vitality, because we talked a lot about how Edenton is different than other small towns, because they're comparing our fund balance to other small towns in our population. And when I explained to them about our industrial base and the expansions that are underway at Jimbo Jumbo's, they're into their second major expansion. They have a third one on the books. Colony Tire, Regulator Marine, what's going on out at Daedalus Yachts. We talked about Kellogg, the investment that they've made. And so the coach team said, your letter's pretty good, but you really need to talk about things you're doing that are going on now that are gonna add to the tax base. So I'm finalizing the language. I've had really great support. I've talked to the businesses and they've given me good information, as well as the county tax supervisor, but I haven't finished it. Our goal is, I really want to get it sent to the LGC on Thursday. It's due next Thursday, but I want to get it up there just as soon as possible. So if you would, I guess you could make a motion to approve signing it, contingent of you all reviewing the final draft. But I don't have it ready for you to sign tonight. We're gonna need to get you to come by the office, and I'll send it out. Hopefully tomorrow you can review it, and then we can start getting signatures.
When's it due again?
It's due December 18th.
You sent certified.
They have an email portal that we can send it, so they'll get it right away.
Okay, with that explanation, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the response letter to the LGC, subject to your review of the final draft. That would include the economic, enhancements within our community that would add to the tax base.
Mayor, before you accept the motion, can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Can we wait and get the letter and then do a phone poll? Is that legal?
Can we do what, I'm sorry?
Can we wait until we get the letter and then do a phone poll that everybody's satisfied, or they just come by and sign it? I hate to approve something I haven't read, to be real honest. I mean, I just did.
Well, she was gonna send it out
Yeah, no.
in email form with the addition.
I guess, well, I'm not sure you really even all you have to approve I'm hoping you all agree to sign it. If you don't like the letter, you don't sign it, and then that would say something. So if you don't wanna, I guess I wanted to be able to tell the LGC that, you all have reviewed it, and then we worked on a draft, and you have signed that. But if you don't need to I don't need approval for you to sign it. You all have to sign it, so we'll just send it, and then if you don't like it, then we'll have to make sure we get it up to par, we'll sign it.
And we would come to your office to sign.
Yes, but if you're out of town, if you have plans, you can sign it electronically, but, yeah.
So do we need a motion?
Okay, so we don't need a motion, we just need to, have you go ahead and complete the letter and let us take a look at it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Will do. So that, includes our new business for this evening, and council members, do you have any items that you consider timely and important you would like to share with us?
Mayor, I'd just like to say one thing. Today marks the first anniversary for Councilman Poole and I on the council. The year went by pretty quick.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
As far as Councilman Poole said, we're a quarter of the way through our term.
Yeah. Well, good.
And one other thing, Emery, how are we coming on the interviews with the fire chief?
I've had 5 interviews, and I've narrowed the pool down, and am working on inviting for second interviews.
I would like to report that on Dilla Street, if you're going on Dilla Street from Paradise Road, it's on the left, that there are tree roots coming up out of the asphalt. And I think some of them are like this already, but is there any way you can stop that?
Corey will take a look at it. It's probably, is it pine tree?
I'm most likely they want to turn the house over.
We'll get Public Works to check on that, and hopefully we can abate that nuisance.
Anything else?
Ma'am, I was sorry that I couldn't attend the meeting last Wednesday. I'm in, Leadership North Carolina class, and it was 3 days last week, so I couldn't get back for it. But one thing that I read in the LGC letter that I noticed that Anne Marie, you say that y'all have addressed it very well, and I hope we continue to do that, was the pre-audit purchase orders. That can get very dangerous with the LGC. And I hope we really do follow through with that. I noticed you said anything over $500 as far as a purchase order has to come through y'all immediately and sign off and all that. But that was disturbing in that letter that we had several cases that the purchase order didn't follow with the pre-audit. And I'm glad to hear we're narrowing down now the fire chief. We have any idea when we might have one?
I think it's gonna be soon. I mean, it's, when you get into this phase and making sure, confirming the right fit, and then doing reference checks and all that kind of stuff, but we're deep in the process.
So maybe by the end of January,
Oh,
what do you think?
I certainly hope way before that.
Okay,
It's not gonna be next week, but it's
Right.
gonna be, yes.
good deal.
I'd like to mention something, earlier this evening, the council authorized, the NC State Group to evaluate the economic impact of the high school within the community. On, January the 14th, Destination Downtown Edenton has engaged a consultant, I don't have his name. He is in the community planning business and is considered to be quite an expert dealing with keeping the vitality and energy of a town moving forward. And he's been given insight as to the proposal relative to moving the school. So his comments are going to be specifically on that. It won't be, I don't think it won't be as detailed and what shall we say, factual as the NC State study will be in terms of pure dollars and cents. But he has a lot of experience in evaluating and then offering his opinion to the group. So I would encourage you all, there'll be more about that published. It's a community-wide meeting, everyone will be invited, and they're working on securing the high school gym for the event, so.
Which would be appropriate, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you.
That's not a coincidence. Okay, and then the next thing that I have is a question, do we have a committee meeting this month?
Mayor, you in the past have not held committee meetings on the fourth Monday of.
Christmas Eve this year.
I won't be here.
All right, good. Well, we will forego, Beth,
What
we
time
can
is it?
agree to roll.
I wanna say something. I wonder am I right? That I have seen many trailers up there to the school and doing a lot of work in that school. I know Superintendent, Mr. Jackson, you had, put out a big fight to get hot water in the school. I think they spent a lot of money in that school. And people want to tear it down and put it out of town. I think it ought to stay. They spent too much money on it to move it,
Yeah.
tear it down.
Well, all of that's getting ready to be discussed with a great deal of earnest and, expression and feelings. So the more we can prepare ourselves, and learn about, what's going on there now and how all that relates to, the impact that it'll have if the decision is made to move. It'll ultimately come down to a vote by the county commissioners. And as you know, there's a joint committee that's been formed, consisting of county commissioners and members of the school board.
And this could get contentious, you can count on it,
Yeah, and there's
unfortunately.
some uncertainty at the moment because we've had an election and the new members on the, county commissioners, there's new leadership, at the county commissioner level, so appointments made to those committees may be the same or they could be different. But anyway, just a FYI, January 14th.
What time is that? January 14th? Six.
They changed it.
Okay, good.
Will you let us know an email,
Sure.
just be honest?
Any other timely and important? All right, well, I'll open the floor for public comment. Anybody here this evening would like to address the town council, this is your opportunity to do so. We ask ask that you take the podium and state your name. We'll be happy to hear what you have to say.
Can I just ask a question? Based on that January 14th meeting that you were talking about, you all just voted to keep the high school in town, right? That
We
was
passed
okay.
a resolution.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is this guy coming in to talk to us about then?
It's community-wide. It's an invitation, Destination Downtown, which is our downtown marketing organization.
But I thought it was specific to the high school that he was talking. That's what you just said.
Correct.
But isn't the high school staying there now that you voted on it?
We
Yeah,
don't
we didn't
know.
vote on
It's
that.
a
It's
resolution
just
of
a
support.
support.
Oh, so the
commissioners-
high school can still move?
Sure.
We don't
Oh,
have
It's
that
the
authority.
purview of the
It's out
county
of our hands.
commission.
Oh, that's what I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, we will adjourn the public hearing, and the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, aye?
Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much for coming. Merry Christmas to everyone from all of us, and we'll see you back here in 2019.